The House will be in order. The chair lays before the House a communication from the Speaker.
The Speaker's Rooms, Washington, D.C., May 8, 2024. I hereby appoint the Honorable Michael Cloud to act as Speaker pro tempore on this day. Signed, Mike Johnson, Speaker of the House of Representatives.
Pursuant to the order of the House of January 9th, 2024, the chair will now recognize members from lists submitted by the majority and minority leaders for morning hour debate. The chair will alternate recognition between the parties with time equally allotted between the parties, and each member other than the majority and minority leaders and the minority whip limited to 5 minutes, but no event shall debate be beyond 11:50 a.m. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Georgia, Mr. Allen, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to congratulate Southern Company, Oglethorpe Power, MEAG Power, Dalton Utilities, and all partners involved in Plant Vogel's Unit 4 officially coming online. At the heart of Georgia's 12th District in Burke County, we are home to Plant Vogel, where the first 2 nuclear reactors to be constructed in over 3 decades in the United States are now fully operational, representing a key investment in Georgia's energy future. Unit 3 entered commercial operation in July 2023, and now Unit 4 has followed suit. This historic achievement has been years in the making and proves that America can still do big things. Plant Vogel is now officially the largest nuclear power station in the country, and I am proud that Georgia's 12th District is a leader in America's nuclear energy future. As I've said many times before, and all of the above energy strategy is critical to reclaiming America's energy dominance. And nuclear, our nation's largest source of clean energy, has a pivotal role to play. Throughout the nation, we have 11,000 utility-scale electric power plants currently under operation, less than 60 of which are nuclear power plants. Even with such a relatively small footprint, nuclear energy accounts for approximately 20% of our energy production and approximately 50% of all emission-free energy generated in the country. Nuclear power plants can operate 24/7, providing a stable baseload supply of electricity. This reliability is crucial for maintaining grid stability and ensuring uninterrupted power supply, particularly during periods of high demand or adverse weather conditions. Since being elected to Congress, I have visited Plant Vogel on numerous occasions to witness various stages of progress throughout the Unit 3 and Unit 4 construction process. In fact, I visited there just before loading of the fuel and was inside the container right before we were beginning operation on Unit 4. Seeing this project come to fruition is nothing short of remarkable. Just last week, I was joined by fellow members of Congress and industry leaders in Augusta for an informative panel discussion on the benefits of nuclear energy expansion in the U.S., followed by a visit to Plant Vogel to see the new units up and running. Plant Vogel is providing safe, reliable, emission-free energy to consumers and businesses across the Peach State and beyond, and each of the new units able to produce enough electricity to power an estimated 500,000 homes and businesses. It will continue to generate power for decades to come. This massive accomplishment certainly came with its challenges along the way, but as we do in Georgia, we persevered. This historic milestone is a major win for all Georgians and America as a whole. And I'd like to once again congratulate Southern Company, Oglethorpe Power, MEAG Power, Dalton Utilities, and all partners involved in this tremendous success and through their perseverance. I look forward to continuing my work on the House Energy and Commerce Committee to enact innovative solutions that further bolster America's clean energy future. And I am proud that our bipartisan nuclear energy package will soon be on its way to the President's desk for signature, which includes my bill, the Nuclear Licensing Efficiency Act, to reform and streamline nuclear licensing and the permitting process. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I yield back.
The gentleman yields. The chair recognizes the gentleman from California, Mr. Costa.
Ask unanimous consent to address the House for 5 minutes and to advise and extend my remarks.
Without objection.
Mr. Speaker, for decades, Head Start and Early Head Start programs have provided comprehensive childhood development services to millions of children across America. Research has shown that participation in Head Start can lead to positive outcomes for our children. By providing children with a strong foundation in their early years, Head Start helps level the playing field, especially for disadvantaged children, and gives them a better chance at academic success. House Democrats have made it clear that investing in America's children will always be among our highest priorities. Thanks to investments we have fought for in the budget, we are working to ensure that federal dollars reach every corner of the country. In my district, I've secured $23 million for Fresno County and $22 million for Tulare County Head Start and Early Head Start programs. These funds will provide families with health and support services while growing the next generation of leaders in the San Joaquin Valley and in California. Investing in education is investing in our children's future, because when our children succeed, America succeeds. Mr. Speaker, I also rise today to recognize what has been taking place around the week in this country and around the world, and that is commemorating Yom HaShoah, ending in 1945, recognizing the 6 million Jewish victims that were killed in the Holocaust. Sadly, on October 7th last year, 79 years after the Holocaust, we witnessed the terrorist organization Hamas rape, execute, and take hostages over 1,400 Israelis, Americans, and other nationalities, which was the largest killing of Jews since the Holocaust. There is clear evidence that rising threat of hate and anti-Semitism is being spread here at home and across the world. I want to commend President Biden and Speaker Johnson yesterday for bringing together a bipartisan gathering to speak against anti-Semitism challenges here in America. In the United States, anti-Semitism incidences have soared over 140% in 2023, breaking all previous records. In America, we support free speech and peaceful protests, but disrupting academic education, attacking Jewish students and faculty have no place on college campuses or universities in America, and it must be stopped. We must unmask groups like the National Students for Justice in Palestine for what they are. They celebrated on October 8th the actions of Hamas that took 1,400 Israeli lives. This is an extension of groups like terrorist groups like Hamas. Hamas, whose mission statement is to eliminate the state of Israel and to kill Jews, as referenced in their slogan. From the river to the sea. The river is the Jordan River and the sea is the Mediterranean. It's to eliminate the state of Israel and to kill Jewish people. That's what their purpose is. We must work together to break this cycle of hate that is plaguing our society and putting lives at risk around the world. In an era of rising anti-Semitism coupled with fading memory of the Holocaust, we must fight conspiracy theories and ensure that lessons of the past are never, ever forgotten. Last month, I was in Israel, and I went to Nova concert site to witness the makeshift memorial where 364 concert goers attended, innocent people killed on October 7th. Last week, I participated in a bipartisan visit of members at the Holocaust Museum for an exhibit that clearly raises the issues of anti-Semitism in America. In the 1920s and the 1930s, led in part by prominent Americans like Henry Ford and Charles Lindbergh. I urge my colleagues and others coming to Washington to go and see this comparative analogy of anti-Semitism from the 1920s and the 1930s and what we are dealing with here today. For it is real, and we must do everything together to combat this plague of anti-Semitism, the politics of hate and the politics of fear. For as the famous historian George Santayana once said, those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. And that's why it's important that we recognize this anniversary of the Holocaust and why we remember that on October 7th of last year, it is not a lingering, distant, fading memory, but it's a real reality hit that we have to deal with here today. I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields. The chair recognizes the gentlewoman from Iowa, Ms. Miller Meeks, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise today in honor of Military Appreciation Month. With 24 years of service in the Army and now representing a congressional district with a significant active duty and veteran population, I'm deeply honored to acknowledge the invaluable contributions of our nation's heroes. Military Appreciation Month was proposed by the late Senator John McCain in February 1999. 2 months later, Congress voted to officially designate May as the nationally recognized period for honoring the military, culminating with Memorial Day. Across the Army, Navy, Marines, Air Force, Coast Guard, and Space Force, there are more than 2.8 million service members worldwide tasked with protecting the freedoms we enjoy here at home. I thank all those who serve and have served. May God bless them, and may God bless the United States of America. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honor the first responders across Iowa who were on the front lines following the recent tornado outbreaks across the state. As Iowans, we are no strangers to severe weathers. Every summer, we do what we can to prepare for the inevitable derecho, floods, severe thunderstorms, and potential tornadoes. And while we prepare for the worst, Iowa's first responders are the heroes on the ground, quickly jumping into action for people impacted by the horrific storms. Without our first responders, severe weather events like the one so many Iowans experienced on April 26th would be much more catastrophic and deadly. So, Mr. Speaker, I ask my colleagues to join me in commending these brave heroes and thanking them for their unbreaking commitment to the safety of all Iowans and all Americans. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honor Wendy Donald, who was named School Nurse of the Year for 2024 by the Iowa School Nurse Organization. With more than 25 years of nursing experience and 7 years serving the Muscatine School District, Wendy's dedication shines through. She advocates tirelessly for the inclusion of school nurses in decision-making processes and collaborates with educators, parents, and healthcare professionals to meet the diverse needs of our students. Wendy's proactive approach extends beyond the school walls, working closely with local healthcare providers to promote community health. Her initiatives, such as raising funds for children in the ER, exemplify her innovative thinking and compassion. And as a former nurse, I certainly recognize these attributes. Let's recognize Wendy's profound impact on our community. Congratulations, Wendy, on this well-deserved recognition. Thank you for your service and inspiring us all. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today in recognition of National Skilled Trades Day, which took place on May 1st this year. In Iowa and across the nation, our skilled tradespeople aren't just contributors to the economy. They are the heartbeat of our communities, shaping our infrastructure and crafting the world we live in. From carpenters shaping our homes to HVAC technicians keeping us comfortable, these individuals are the unsung heroes of our local communities. Today, I stand proud to honor their contributions and reaffirm my commitment to champion their interests in Congress. Let us continue to support and celebrate the skilled trades, ensuring that future generations can pursue these fulfilling and essential careers. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to celebrate Iowa Hawkeyes Cooper DeJean, Eric All, Tory Taylor, and Logan Lee for being recently drafted into the National Football League. Iowa is world-renowned for cultivating athletic talent, and these elite athletes will join 37 other Hawkeyes currently playing in the NFL. Coach Kirk Ferentz and the entire crew at the University of Iowa have worked tirelessly in support of these players and in their journeys to the Premier League in football. Coach Ferentz and his team deserve the utmost credit for developing a first-class program that makes good players into great players and winners into champions. So, Mr. Speaker, I ask my colleagues to join me in celebrating these 4 drafted players and all of the Hawkeyes making their way to the NFL. And by the way, it wasn't a fair catch. With that, as always, go Hawkeyes. Mr. Speaker, I yield back.
The gentlewoman yields. The chair recognizes the gentlewoman from Illinois, Ms. Ramirez.
Thank you. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to address the House for 5 minutes. Thank you. Short. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to affirm that we're paying attention. We were paying attention when 35,000 Palestinians were killed. We were paying attention when over 14,500 children were robbed of their future. 404 doctors and aid workers were killed. 100 journalists and media workers were killed. And we are paying attention as over 1.1 million people are on the verge of starving to death. Yesterday, we were paying attention when Israel began its invasion into Rafah and seized control of the Rafah crossing. We were paying attention on February 8th when President Biden said that providing periodic congressional reports to Congress enables meaningful oversight. We were paying attention last month when a nonpartisan task force issued an independent, credible report outlining the Israeli government's violations of international humanitarian law. In 76 pages of details, they provide example after example of what they call a systematic disregard for international humanitarian law and military best practice regarding civilian harm mitigation by the Israel Defense Forces, including with U.S.-provided arms. And today we're paying attention as President Biden's National Security Memorandum 20, what we call the NSM 20, congressional reporting deadline on Israel's use of U.S. arms comes to be due. We know that Netanyahu's administration has been and is continuing to assure the U.S. government that it is using U.S. weapons in line with international laws and is not interfering with the delivery of humanitarian aid. But given what we have witnessed over the last 214 days, how can we trust Netanyahu's official assurances that they are complying with international law? How can we be expected to ignore the violations of international law and interference with the delivery of humanitarian assistance we have witnessed in real time? What are we to say to the constituents whose families are starving, whose loved ones cannot receive medical care, or who've never received the promised evacuation from Gaza? What do we say to the brave and courageous students across campuses, our children who are defending other children in Gaza who are being murdered with U.S. bombs? What do we say to the children who are still looking for their mothers under the rubble as we approach Mother's Day? The administration's willingness to make exceptions for Israel has got to stop. The actions of the Netanyahu government are exceptionally non-compliant with international law and exceptionally unconcerned with human rights. The Biden administration must consider other credible sources of information beyond the Israeli government as it fulfills its NSM 20 reporting obligations. And the administration must fulfill those obligations today. I expect that this country will demonstrate our commitment to international law, to human rights, and congressional oversight, because we are paying attention. The time has come for the administration to follow through on its warning about Israeli conduct and take meaningful action. Because if the administration is paying attention, they will enforce both our laws through SM-20 and Section 6201 of the Foreign Assistance Act, and also international law. Anything less undermines our credibility and is a stain on the legacy of our country's leadership. With that, Mr. Speaker, I yield back.
The gentlewoman yields. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Virginia, Mr. Klein, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we were paying attention. We were paying attention on October 7th. We were paying attention when Hamas, the terrorist organization, slaughtered innocent women and children, elderly citizens of the nation of Israel. We were paying attention. And now the world is paying attention as Israel seeks to eliminate Hamas. We stand with Israel. We stand with the citizens of Israel. And we are paying attention not only to Israel as it seeks to destroy Hamas and rid the world of this terrorist organization, but we are paying attention to those in Congress and across the country who are siding with Hamas, who are siding with terrorists, who are siding with murderers. Remember October 7th, we stand with Israel. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to recognize the efforts of John Handley High School seniors. These remarkable students have taken on a significant project to honor alumni from the Douglas School who valiantly served in World War II. The project involves adding their names to the Patsy Cline Theater at John Handley High School, acknowledging the contributions and service of those veterans alongside those already honored from John Handley. Douglas School served African American students in Winchester until its closure in 1966, so the students want to make sure all of the community's World War II veterans are given the recognition they rightly deserve. The students' work involves a great deal of researching and documenting the names of Douglas School veterans, a crucial step in preserving our history and ensuring the bravery and sacrifices of all of our World War II veterans are honored. So far, they've collected 300 names of World War II veterans and are working to verify that they attended Douglas High School. Mr. Speaker, I urge my colleagues to join me in applauding these students and their efforts to ensure that the contributions of our veterans are never forgotten. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to recognize the Salem High School debate team for winning the 2024 Virginia High School League Championship, the first in their history. This historic win came after an impressive performance at James Madison University, where Salem's team showcased their unparalleled skill and determination against the Rock Ridge team, winning with a score of 21-13. The team was led by Claire Rawlins and Kaylee Chrisley, whose unmatched skill and policy debate steered Salem to victory. Claire Rawlins also has etched her name in VHSL history by winning titles in both forensics, impromptu speaking, and a debate event in a single year. In the VHSL competition, Rawlins and Chrisley won a combined 10 wins and 1 loss, while winning the region, super region, and state championships. Their achievements, along with those of their teammates, propelled Salem to this prestigious state title. I congratulate Salem High School on their state championship in debate and to the students, coaches, and everyone involved in this monumental achievement. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to recognize George Bailey, a valiant World War II veteran who joined the Capitol Wing Warbird Showcase at Shenandoah Valley Airport as part of his 99th birthday celebration. George Bailey, who faithfully served in the Army's 283rd Field Artillery Battalion, represents the best of American courage and resolve. His dedication to our country, followed by his distinguished career at Pratt & Whitney, showcases the enduring American spirit of innovation and excellence. At the showcase, George Bailey was given the honor to take to the skies on a flight aboard the historic Stinson OY-1. George's enthusiasm for aviation serves as a powerful reminder of the gratitude we owe to our veterans. Their commitment and sacrifices have paved the way for the freedoms and opportunities we enjoy. As we look forward to celebrating George's 100th birthday next year, with hopes of another flight, I want to thank George and to all those who joined and supported this memorable showcase. Your dedication ensures that the legacy of our nation's heroes continues to be celebrated and remembered for generations to come. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to celebrate the Shenandoah Apple Blossom Festival's 100th birthday. This year marked the 100th anniversary of the festival's establishment in 1924, despite having hosted only 97 festivals to date because of profound impacts of World War II and more recently the COVID pandemic. The festival includes 10 days of events, including a carnival, dances, parades, band concerts, parties, and attracts crowds of more than 250,000 people. Last week, 500 people joined a celebration of James R. Wilkins Jr. Athletics and Events Center at Shenandoah University to honor a century of tradition, resilience, and community spirit at the Shenandoah Apple Blossom Festival. Mr. Speaker, this achievement is an incredible milestone. I want to extend my utmost gratitude to all those who worked tirelessly behind the scenes to make the Apple Blossom Festival one of the best celebrations in Virginia's 6th District and nationwide. Year after year, their dedication has created a celebration for our community to recognize and enjoy the rich agricultural heritage of the Shenandoah Valley. Mr. Speaker, I yield back.
The gentleman yields. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Vesey, for 5 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to celebrate an amazing Fort Worth, Texas, and now U.S. hero, Miss Opal Lee, better known as the grandmother of Juneteenth, who is an incredible gift to not just Fort Worth, but again, the entire nation. And this past Friday, she was awarded with the Presidential Medal of Freedom for her efforts establishing Juneteenth as a national holiday. And when I say effort, I mean effort. Miss Opal Lee literally, at 90 plus years of age, walked across the country and took many steps, literally, to make this happen. At 97, not only did she receive the Presidential Medal of Freedom, but she will also be receiving an honorary doctorate from Southern Methodist University at their upcoming commencement. I'm so glad to see all of this work that Ms. Opal Lee is doing be rewarded and be recognized. And I also want to touch on a few of the other things that she is doing. She has an amazing community garden that is feeding people all over Tarrant County and Fort Worth, and also has an incredible food bank that is doing similar work. And I know that everyone is watching what Ms. Lee is doing and proud of her accomplishments and just all of the fame that she has brought to Fort Worth. And the United Riverside community is also proud of her as they get to call her neighbor. Ms. Lee, keep up the good work. We're proud of you and cannot wait until we get that museum done. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to recognize the accomplishments of some of our young people in Fort Worth. In 2024, at the Texas Relays, we had 3 state champions. And you may have heard these names before, and it's because they were also state champions in previous meets. First, I want to highlight Kalani Lawson from Paul Laurence Dunbar High School, who defended her state championship in the girls' 4A 100-meter hurdles. And she's only a junior. And not only that, she broke last year's record that had been on the books since the 1990s. And she broke her own record again this year and taking home the gold running the 100-meter hurdles in 13.89 seconds. I also want to take the time to highlight another back-to-back champion. That is Fort Worth Odie Wyatt's Malik Franklin, who won the state championship in the Class 5A boys 400-meter with a winning time of 47.23. Again, Malik won back-to-back championships. He's also a great student, star of the football team. You should check out some of his videos on Max Prep during those football games. But Malik is going to take his talents and continue his track career at Arizona State University. Again, very proud of his accomplishments. And also want to give a shout out to AP Ranch and Greg Scholars and the coaches out there that are just bringing home those championships for North Texas and working with so many of our kids, really making North Texas one of the great areas for sprinters and distance runners. And also, he had an injury last year, but won the state championship his sophomore year. Angel Sanchez from Diamond Hill Jarvis High School, who claimed the boys 4A 3,200 meter, and also the mile. During the 3,200 meters, he posted a time of 9:14.44, which is 5 times faster than the second place finisher. And he also posted in the 1,600 a 4.1308, again, which is a new Class 4A record. Angel has literally raced all around the country. He's been highlighted and running in Oregon, running in many other high school meets. And up on his graduation here in a couple of weeks, he is going to be headed to Oklahoma State to continue to run. So go Pokes. We'll continue to watch Angel run while he is at Oklahoma State, but just really want to congratulate him for everything that he has done for Diamond Hill Jarvis. That entire community on the north side in Diamond Hill is just extremely proud of Mr. Sanchez and what he's doing, and can't wait to continue to see him run. Mr. Speaker, I yield back.
The gentleman yields. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Kansas. Mr. Mann.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to continue calling attention for the need for Congress to pass a comprehensive 5-year farm bill that provides certainty to our agriculture producers while responding to market changes and strengthening the ag safety net. My priorities for the next farm bill have not changed. It is in the best interest of our American farmers, ranchers, and agriculture producers to authorize a farm bill that protects and strengthens crop insurance, incentivizes agriculture trade programs that help Americans remain competitive on the global stage, and conducts rigorous oversight and rolls back overly restrictive regulation, and supports agriculture research and development. Investing in agriculture research, and particularly animal health research, supports our nation's food security and ultimately our national security. This is especially true today as the highly pathogenic avian influenza virus spreads across wildlife, poultry, and dairy cattle around the country. My staff and I remain in close contact with USDA regarding the spread, and we are grateful for USDA's efforts to control the outbreak. However, it emphasizes the reality that animal health often does not get the attention that it deserves. Luckily, HPAI has no proven impact on our country's food supply, but we are starting to see the economic impact of this virus. Last week, Colombia became the first country to restrict U.S. beef imports coming from states where HPAI is present. As of yesterday, at least 22 states had issued some restrictions on the importation of dairy cattle from affected states. By actively investing in research of animal disease, we have the opportunity to allocate resources to the prevention rather than the outbreak control. These investments serve as a more cost-effective approach to protecting our nation's food supply by limiting animal disease and outbreaks before they spread. For years, Kansas has led the United States in supporting global food security initiatives. Just last year, the U.S. Department of Agriculture opened a state-of-the-art national bio and agri-defense facility in Manhattan, Kansas. The facility will conduct research into serious animal disease threats and the potential impact of those diseases. It is the only maximum biocontainment space in the country where USDA conducts comprehensive research, develops animal vaccines and antivirals, and explores diagnostic and training capabilities. This facility is just down the street from my alma mater, Kansas State University, and their School of Veterinary Medicine and the Biosecurity Research Institute. These institutions are the crown jewels of the animal health corridor, creating a scientific hub where world-renowned research happens, leading the world in agriculture research and health. American farmers, ranchers, and agriculture producers understand that to turn a profit, we must embrace the idea of innovating, adapting, and increasing efficiency. According to USDA, agriculture research returns $20 in benefits to the economy for every public dollar that's spent. We save American tax dollars and the risk of disrupting our food supply chain when we adequately invest in agriculture and animal health research. Despite this, federal funding has declined in real dollars over the past 2 decades, while other forms of research have increased. If we continue down this path, we will not only hurt our agriculture producers, but also American consumers, American food security, and in turn, our national security. We must ensure the Farm Bill addresses the risk to animal health and better positions us to invest in prevention rather than outbreak control. Investing in animal health research bolsters the long-term ability of U.S. animal agriculture to be competitive in the global marketplace, provides consumers with safe, wholesome, and affordable food, and ensures agriculture thrives in America. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And with that, I yield back.
The gentleman yields. The chair recognizes the gentleman from California, Mr. Garcia, for 5 minutes. Without objection.
Mr. Speaker, we all know that our planet is the most important thing we have, which is why we make the necessary investments to protect it. Now, I'm proud to announce that I've joined forces with Senator Elizabeth Warren to introduce the Build Green Infrastructure and Jobs Act. Now, this bill is part of the Green New Deal and is a major step toward addressing climate change. It will invest $500 billion over 10 years to electrify and modernize public vehicles and trains across the country, all while building new electric transportation infrastructure in every major city in America. It will make our transportation networks safer and cleaner, from buses to trains to rail. And the bill links transit investments with increasing density and affordable housing. It will also help create millions of new green jobs with strong protections for labor. The Build Green Act is sustainable, equitable, and most importantly, necessary for protecting our future. We will continue working to combat our climate crisis and supporting a Green New Deal for every single American. Let's pass this bill now and electrify the nation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I yield back.
The gentleman yields. The chair recognizes the gentleman from South Carolina, Mr. Norman, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm honored to rise today to honor and congratulate the Conservative Partnership Institute, otherwise known as CPI, on their 7-year anniversary. I also welcome Ed Cargan and Mark Meadows into the gallery to recognize this great organization. In 2017, former Congressman and Senator Jim DeMint began this organization to be an incredible support system for conservatives in Washington, D.C. CPI was designed to train and unite true conservative leaders in Washington and all across the country to stand up against the swamp. I consider the CPI a safe haven, a place that feels like home for conservative lawmakers and staffs to go to connect, to learn, and to brainstorm. CPI has shown a great commitment to conservative offices, to conservative members, to conservative staffers, and to conservative lawmakers alike. CPI provides everything from regular training seminars on House and Senate procedures, advertisement on floor strategy, communications, budget, and much, much more. Their vested interest in all aspects of governance plays a large role in the success we have seen from conservative offices and individuals. The training provided by CPI is top of the line, and its positive impacts are clearly on display not only here in Washington, D.C., but in districts all across the country. Their efforts continue to ensure that we are well prepared in our fight for this great nation. I also want to take the time to specifically honor Jim DeMint as his lifelong and tireless fight for freedom, prosperity, and traditional American values. Jim represented South Carolina in the House of Representatives and then in the Senate from 1999 to 2013. He led meaningful efforts such as a ban on congressional earmarks and reclaiming control of billions of dollars of wasteful spending. Today, he and others, including Ed Cargan and Mark Meadows, spearhead the fight for a new generation of true conservatives. All over America, the CPI has been a bulwark against the swamp and the support systems for conservatives looking for the right thing to do. The goal is reflected daily in the operations of CPI and the tremendous impact that it continues to spread. And I cannot thank the many patriots who have fought hard to preserve this great American system as we know it, otherwise known as freedom for we the people. Please join me in congratulating CPI for their excellence during the first 7 years. It means everything to me and my colleagues and our staffs to have a home at the CPI building. I am forever grateful to Jim DeMint and others and the entire team at CPI for providing the platform for us to grow even stronger in our American ideals. I look forward to watching them pave a path forward for true conservatives to thrive and to make America the best that it can be. Mr. Speaker, I yield back.
The gentleman yields. The chair recognizes the gentlewoman from Pennsylvania, Mrs. Wild, for 5 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, I ask for unanimous consent to address the House.
The gentlewoman is recognized.
Our teachers do not get nearly enough love. Well, maybe during COVID they did, when students were all at home and parents and families suddenly realized just how important those teachers were, but not before or since, and not nearly enough. So I'm very happy that it's Teacher Appreciation Week, although honestly I think we should be appreciating our teachers every single day. I am so proud to honor outstanding teachers across my community in Pennsylvania 7, starting with Ms. Jennifer Danseisen from Palmerton Area High School in Carbon County. Ms. Danseisen has worked at the Palmerton School District for more than 20 years, and her students have repeatedly commended her calming presence, her heavy involvement in extracurricular activities, and her commitment to all of them. On top of her work as the department chair for business and technology classes, she advises the Mock Trial Club and Future Business Leaders of America and coaches the tennis team. Even while juggling numerous responsibilities, she prioritizes treating all of her students with dignity and respect. Thank you, Ms. Danseisen, and all of our wonderful teachers for your commitment to shaping our next generation. And this Teacher Appreciation Week, I am also proud to recognize Ms. Susan Klotz from Kenneth N. Butz Jr. Elementary School in the Nazareth School Area District. Ms. Klotz has been an educator in the Nazareth Area School District in Northampton County for 23 years. In addition to making each and every one of her students feel valued and supported in their learning journey, she is an advisor of the Kindness Squad, working with students to spread kindness not just throughout their school, but across our community and even globally. This year alone, she facilitated the collection of more than 2,000 books for the Cops and Kids program and organized a toy drive for students in the Dominican Republic. Ms. Klotz also spends time mentoring aspiring educators from East Stroudsburg University. She always goes the extra mile to make school a place where everyone, teachers, students, and families alike, can thrive. Thank you, Ms. Klotz, and all of our wonderful teachers for your dedication to bettering our community. And this Teacher Appreciation Week, I am proud to recognize Morgan Poloni, a third grade teacher at Steckel Elementary School in Lehigh County. As a Whitehall High School graduate herself, Morgan is deeply connected to her community, both inside and outside the classroom. She has served as a high school softball coach, teacher leader, mentor, and active participant in various district committees. Her students and colleagues know that they can always count on her for encouragement, leadership, and a positive attitude. Morgan's impact in Whitehall goes beyond teaching. She actively participates in community events and fundraising for organizations like Big Brothers Big Sisters and the Lehigh Valley Riley Children's Hospital. Her presence is felt at our student sporting events and spirit days, where her colleagues said her school spirit is truly unmatched. Thank you, Morgan, and all of our wonderful teachers for your unwavering dedication to our shared community. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield back.
The gentlewoman yields. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Guam, Mr. Moylan, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and Hofade. The people of Guam would like to congratulate and recognize Admiral John Aquilino, call sign Lung. Admiral Aquilino began his career as a midshipman at the U.S. Navy Academy. Upon graduating in 1984, he would go on to receive his aviator wings. Over his 4 decades of service in the U.S. Navy, he performed his duties with distinction. From his first fighter squadron assignment, commander of the U.S. Pacific Fleet, he has stood a most commendable watch. And as the Admiral stood his last watch and command, as commander of the U.S. Indo-Pacific Command, he ensured 375,000 service members and civilian personnel maintained a bias towards action and excellence. This was especially the case in his service to the land of America's first sunrise, Guam. During his tenure as Indo-PACOM commander, he led the establishment of the Joint Task Force Micronesia and continually advocated for the Guam Missile Defense System. His efforts ensured the people of Guam know that the Defense Department is committed to defending the homeland and our allies globally. As the U.S. Indo-Pacific Command welcomes Admiral Pomparo, we would like to take time to thank Admiral Aquilino and his family for their support, advocacy, and commitment to the Navy and our nation. Today, we take a pause to witness this shipment go ashore for a final time. Admiral Aquilino, God bless you, and we wish you fair winds and flowing seas. Hurrah! Mr. Speaker, as the nation celebrates Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, I proudly rise to recognize my community, the island of Guam. Over 7,000 miles away from the U.S. mainland resides a proud community of Chamorros, Filipino Americans, Korean Americans, Micronesian, an array of ethnicities. We are a melting pot of different cultures and backgrounds, united by our shared values and beliefs. At the core of it all lies Inafa Malik, which means restore harmony and make good. The concept of Inafa Malik plays a significant role within our Asian American and Pacific Island community on Guam. This cultural value encourages community members to uplift one another, take care of each other, and work towards a common goal of unity and harmony. As Guam's representative in Congress, I am committed to ensuring that the voices of the perspectives of Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders are heard on the national stage. During this month, may we continue to pay tribute to the achievements and invaluable contributions for over 50 ethnic groups, speaking more than 100 languages and dialects. Let us honor the rich diversity of cultures, traditions, and contributions that the AAPI community has woven into American history. In my community back home and fellow islanders on the mainland, I extend my warmest wishes during Asia, America, and Pacific Islanders Heritage Month. Biba. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield back.
The gentleman yields. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Connecticut, Mr. Larson, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to address the body to discuss the nation's #1 anti-poverty program for the elderly and the nation's #1 anti-poverty program for children. That's Social Security. And Mr. Speaker, I know you know this, but can you imagine that Congress hasn't made an adjustment to Social Security in more than 53 years? Richard Nixon was President of the United States the last time that Congress enhanced benefits for the country. Imagine, Mr. Speaker, and I'm sure for people in our audience, that 10,000 baby boomers a day become eligible for Social Security. And as you know, the fund is about to be cut by 20% in two ways. If Congress does nothing by 2034, according to the latest report, it will be cut 20%. So basically, the nation's #1 anti-poverty program for the elderly will be cut by 20% if Congress does nothing, and it hasn't done anything in more than 50 years. Now, there are some proposals, including Social Security 2100, that would extend and pay for this. And there are others, like the Republican Study Committee, that says what they want to do is raise the age. The idea that people are living longer. Well, that's true. That's a good thing. So if people are living longer, they should be working longer and should be getting less. I don't know how that makes sense. If you're living longer, when you retire, you should be receiving yes, because as you know, Mr. Speaker, for every year you raise the age, that's a 7% cut in benefits. So raising the age to 70 is a 21% cut. And if that were to be enacted, that would cut Social Security 21% before 2033. And again, leaving our most vulnerable. And it's not only, Mr. Speaker, seniors. Social Security is also the #1 anti-poverty program for children. It is also the disability program that more veterans rely on than they do the VA. Imagine that this body, this Congress, the only body capable of doing this, the President can't do it through executive order, the Supreme Court isn't going to rule on it, the only body that can act is the United States Congress. and it hasn't done a thing. The American people, especially with 10,000 baby boomers a day becoming eligible for Social Security, are demanding that Congress act. We have a proposal to enhance benefits. We have a proposal to lift the more than 5 million Americans, Mr. Speaker, who get below poverty level checks from their government, having paid into Social Security throughout a lifetime. That simply isn't fair. We have a proposal to give 23 million Americans a tax cut who currently continue to work because they have to, and their Social Security ends up being taxed. Now, the Republican Study Committee lays out tax cuts for the extraordinarily wealthy in the trillions. How about we do something for the average American citizen, the guy who gets up and works every day? President Biden has suggested what we need to do, because these programs are all paid for, don't impact the debt or the deficit, they're an earned benefit. He suggested that how about we have people making over $400,000 pay their fair share. Currently, billionaires pay next to nothing. Millionaires are done paying Social Security on February the 2nd. Everybody else has to pay in. It's about time we owned up to our responsibility.
It's not here. The gentleman's recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today, just 1 week after his heavenly birthday, to honor one of the legends and icons of jazz music, the great Ira Sullivan. Ira was many things: a jazz great, an educator, a mentor, a father, a husband, a friend of mine. And I remember first meeting Ira as a jazz student at the University of Miami Young Musicians Camp Jazz Honor Program. I remember walking in, very young age, I think it was in the 8th or 9th grade, and he asked me to play vibraphone to a jazz song. I had auditioned as a drummer. For me, that was a very foreign thing. I wasn't, hip to the history of jazz vibraphonists. So I felt like he was almost like he was asking me to play timpani and play timpani on a jazz song. But either way, the next day he came in and he gave me a pair of Gary Burton mallets, and he told me to try playing the vibraphone to jazz. And believe it or not, I was still very confused. But either way, that decision changed my entire life. From then on, I started practicing jazz vibraphone and became very obsessed with it. Years passed, and he'd always invite me to come back to perform with him in the new class that he was teaching, all young people that Ira had inspired and lives that were changed. Ira Sullivan also achieved technical skills not achieved by many. A multi-instrumentalist in the truest sense of the word, fluidly being able to play both the trumpet, also the saxophone, the flute, the drum set, piano, and many other instruments. He was born in Chicago but moved to Miami in the 60s to perform and teach. Ira has the ability and has been both a jazz great in the history books, but also has remained an accessible educator for artists of many different levels and calibers. Ira mentored jazz greats like Jaco Pastorius and Pat Metheny. He also taught high schoolers at the Young Musicians Camp at the University of Miami, which is where I met him. So today I wanted to honor Ira Sullivan for inspiring so many people. I stopped playing jazz a few years ago, and I've been telling myself I'd get back into it. And just a few days ago, I joined a high school jazz combo from Central Florida, Freedom High School, and played drums on a standard tune. So I'm going to start practicing again in honor of Ira. Rest in peace, Ira, jazz legend and great teacher. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to celebrate the 20th anniversary of the Rosen College of Hospitality Management at the University of Central Florida. Established through a transformational $18 million donation from Mr. Harris Rosen, the college advances educational and community development initiatives that bolster Florida's leading industry, tourism, and hospitality. UCF Rosen College is consistently ranked as the top hospitality college in the nation and among top 5 globally. It's a testament to its educational excellence and leadership in hospitality research. Committed to advancing knowledge, embracing innovation, and serving humanity through hospitality, the college stands as not only for its top ranking, but also for its extensive range of programs that provide a 99% job placement rate for their graduates. It's an honor to be able to represent the UCF Rosen College of Hospitality Management here in the halls of Congress as they propel Florida's primary economic sector forward and enrich our state in the global hospitality landscape. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honor 4 extraordinary women for their impact on Central Florida and beyond. Their tireless efforts, unwavering determination, and profound achievements have shaped our local history and continue to inspire generations to come. We honor them for their strength of character, unwavering spirit, and profound influence that they've had on our community. Anchanto, Associate General Counsel at the University of Central Florida College of Medicine. We have Graciela Jacobi, Chief Operating Officer for the Heart of Florida United Way. We have Dr. Marie Jose Francois, founder of the Center for Multicultural Wellness and Prevention, and Pastor Sharon Riley, founder and pastor of Agape Perfecting Praise and Worship Center. I want to celebrate these women for all that they are: trailblazers, visionaries, scientists, educators, and leaders. And among countless others, they have left a legacy of compassion, innovation, and empowerment in a state that needs that now more than ever. Mr. Chair, I yield back.
The gentleman yields. The chair recognizes the gentlelady from California, Ms. Barragan, for 5 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today in the name of freedom, the freedom that women should have to make decisions about their own bodies and have that ability. A sacred freedom that House Republicans are fighting to take away from your mother, your sister, your daughters, and every woman in America. This week, Republicans are holding votes to say the government should not be involved in households having more efficient appliances. Yet, they have no problem saying government should tell women what to do with their bodies and limit their access to women's health care. While House Democrats will continue to fight to restore Roe versus Wade so women have the freedom over their bodies, we must call out the extreme Republican agenda that is focused on a nationwide ban to access women's reproductive health care. And this assault on women and our freedoms is already underway in many Republican-led states where women are now subject to cruel abortion bans, which have brought fear and danger, but also have brought heartbreaking experiences that will have lasting impacts. For example, in Mississippi, a 12-year-old rape victim was forced to carry a baby to term. In Ohio, a woman was criminally charged for having a miscarriage after she went to the hospital to seek care when her doctor said that the fetus was not viable. Republican-controlled states throughout the South and Midwest have passed extreme laws that leave no option for women to access reproductive health care. These women have no choice but to travel hundreds of miles to a state where access to care is still available. A Missouri woman had to travel to Illinois to save her own life after both the state of Missouri and Kansas health systems refused to provide care when her water broke just 4 months in, and doctors said she's at risk of losing her uterus. Mothers who cannot afford to travel out of state for reproductive care have been forced to endure painful pregnancies and risk their own lives when they are advised of serious complications. Bans make access to reproductive care unobtainable for low-income women. Many are Latinas or women of color Over 6.7 million Latino women live in states that have banned or are likely to ban abortions. More than 3 million of these women come from families that earn below 200% of the poverty line. Access to reproductive health care is a women's rights issue, and it's a racial justice issue. Republicans in Congress also want to strip away women of their fundamental right to decide when to start a family. Just look at their policies and their voting records. 127 House Republicans are co-sponsors of a bill that will threaten access to IVF nationwide and have blocked legislation by Democrats that would protect IVF access. 195 Republicans have voted against legal contraception. House Republicans voted unanimously against the restoration of Roe versus Wade. And extreme MAGA Republicans plan to go further and let states monitor women who are pregnant to restrict their ability to access reproductive care. House Democrats will not stand by and let MAGA Republicans restrict the freedom of women from getting the life-saving care they need. We will continue the fight to make reproductive freedom the law of the land and allow women to make decisions about their own health care again. I yield back.
The gentlelady yields. Pursuant to Clause 12 Alpha of Rule 1, the chair declares the House in recess until noon today.
The House will be in order. The prayer will be offered by Chaplain Gibbon.
Would you pray with me? As we face the day that lies ahead, send us out to serve you, dear God. May we be faithful to keep your commands. May we take time to enjoy the fellowship you provide. May we be eager to be loyal to you. And may our deep desire to be worthy of you sustain us when so many other things clamor for our attention. These are indeed challenging times, but we trust that you hold them in your care. Give us wisdom to appreciate the steadfastness of heart and soul our service to you requires. In a world where efficiency all too often overrides effectiveness, may our goal be your intent for our energies. While whole communities are rent by the contest of wills and divided by the race for power, may we live into your plan, which transcends all selfish desire. As we watch as even the slightest disagreement becomes grounds for discord, may we step up and step in to be instruments of the reconciliation you desire for your creation. Make us strong and courageous. You have commanded us to serve you and have blessed us with your trust. We need not fear nor be dismayed, for you, O Lord, are with us this day and in the days ahead. In your abiding love we stand, and in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. The chair has examined the journal of the last day's proceedings and announces to the House the approval thereof. Pursuant to Clause 1 of Rule 1, the journal stands approved. The Pledge of Allegiance will be led by the gentleman from Alabama, Mr. Carl.
Attention, salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The chair will receive a message.
Mr. Speaker, messages from the President of the United States.
Mr. Speaker,
Madam Secretary.
I am directed by the President of the United States to deliver to the House of Representatives messages in writing.
Okay. The chair will entertain up to 15 requests for 1-minute speeches on each side of the aisle. For what purpose does the gentleman from Virginia seek recognition?
Request permission to address the House for 1 minute.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to recognize and honor the extraordinary service of Louisa County School Superintendent Doug Straley. Mr. Straley has worked tirelessly for many years to improve the lives of students, teachers, and staff in Louisa County Public Schools. For his effort, Mr. Straley was named the 2024 Virginia Superintendent of the Year by the Virginia Association of School Superintendents, recognizing his outstanding leadership of the county schools. Mr. Straley began his career as a teacher and served as an athletics director, high school principal, assistant superintendent, before assuming his current position as superintendent. As a lifelong resident of Louisa County, Mr. Straley has proudly dedicated 29 years of service to Louisa County Public Schools. His contributions to the Louisa community are immeasurable, and he is a most worthy recipient of this award. I thank Mr. Straley for his exceptional achievements in Louisa County. I wish him continued success as he strives to impact students in the county. I'm honored to represent Superintendent Doug Straley and all of the incredible public servants of Virginia's 5th District. And I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. For what purpose does the gentleman from New York seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute and to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today in honor of National Nurses Week and to celebrate the incredible contributions and sacrifices that nurses make each and every day. As an occupational therapist myself, I've seen firsthand how important nurses are, not only in the delivery of health care, but in their daily interactions with patients. They build connections and tend to a patient's needs, serving as the main conduit to a patient's medical care. My grandmother, DeShonta O'Brien Kennedy, was a nurse, and my mother, Mary Wilson Kennedy, was a nurse for more than 54 years and went on to teach nursing at D'Youville University in retirement. We should be grateful to our nurses, but we need to do more to support them. This Congress should prioritize the passage of H.R. 2530. This legislation will mandate specified minimum nurse-to-patient ratios in hospitals, ensure Medicare payments reflect those ratios, and empower nurses to speak up if those ratios are violated. It's common sense that we protect patients, reduce burnout and fatigue among nurses, and will save lives. Let's get it done. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. For what purpose does the gentleman from South Carolina seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute and revise to extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Disastrous decisions of Biden and far-left Democrats continue to cause distress for families and destroy jobs. The Federal Reserve announced that they would keep interest rates at a 2-decade high because Biden inflation is making home ownership unattainable for millions of Americans. Biden has produced the highest inflation in 40 years, with higher prices every day since he took office. Egg costs up 49%, baby food 31%, electricity up 29%, poultry up 24%, coffee up 20%. Corrupt Judge Merchan has unintentionally confirmed the deranged big government corruption to defame Donald Trump. This helps Donald Trump. This corrupt judge now will be my guest. I invite him to come in January to the inauguration of Donald Trump, which he unintentionally is causing. In conclusion, God bless our troops who successfully protected America for 20 years as the global war on terrorism moves from the Afghanistan safe haven to America. We don't need new border laws. We need to enforce existing laws. Biden shamefully opens the borders for dictators as more 9/11 attacks across America are imminent, as repeatedly warned by the FBI.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Pennsylvania seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I request unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute and to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to recognize May as Mental Health Awareness Month. Mental Health Awareness Month has been a cornerstone of addressing the challenges faced by millions of Americans living with mental health conditions. By breaking the stigma and talking about depression, anxiety, and other conditions, we can help those affected to seek quality care that they deserve. Mr. Speaker, by bringing attention to mental health, we can elevate the conversation surrounding mental health. We're focusing on prioritizing mental health and acknowledging it is okay to not be okay. If you are suffering or feel alone, please reach out for help. It's important to remember that you are not alone. This month, reach out to your loved ones and check in. By starting the conversation, we are one step closer to ending the stigma surrounding mental health. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields back. For what purpose does the gentleman from Alabama seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute and to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today in remembrance of Marine Corps Major General Jerome Gary Cooper. Cooper began his career at the University of Notre Dame, receiving his bachelor's degree in financing while participating in Naval ROTC. He then joined the Marine Corps. During the Vietnam War, he became the first African American to ever command a Marine Corps infantry company. Among his many accolades, he was awarded the Bronze Star and 2 Purple Hearts. In 1988, he was promoted to Major General at the headquarters of the Marine Corps. In 1989, President George H.W. Bush appointed Cooper as Assistant Secretary to the Air Force in Manpower and Reserve Affairs. Then, President Clinton appointed him as U.S. Ambassador to Jamaica. Cooper leaves behind a legacy of sacrifice, heroism, and inspiration to all. He passed away in Mobile at the age of 87 and will be remembered for his priceless service to our nation. Hoorah, Marine. May you rest in peace. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I yield my time.
Gentleman yields back. For what purpose does the gentleman from Georgia seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute and revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to urge my colleagues to pass a full reauthorization of the FAA. Right now, we have a Federal Aviation Administration that is operating under 20th century technology. Full reauthorization ensures the United States remains the gold standard on the world stage in aviation by bolstering U.S. technology and restructuring the FAA to improve efficiency. Matter of fact, the FAA Reauthorization Act of 2024 includes a handful of amendments many of my colleagues have worked with industry experts on for several months, one of which I was proud to have included in the House-passed version. This amendment encourages private sector investment in hypersonic technology so we can remain competitive on the world stage. Our aviation sector drives over 5% of the GDP and supports 11 million jobs. So full authorization ensures that our skies remain safe and our aviation industry stays competitive. So I urge my colleagues, let's get this good piece of legislation across the finish line. Thank you, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. For what purpose does the gentleman from Nebraska seek recognition? Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to address President Biden's student loan bailout schemes. Just weeks ago, the president unveiled a new executive action even after the Supreme Court shut down his previous attempts to let people off the hook for their loans. He's not just trying to unilaterally cancel student debt. His agencies have been working to make the student loan repayment process dysfunctional. On one hand, the Federal Student Aid Agency is paying contractors who service student loans less money, and that agency has acknowledged that the level of service for student loan holders will suffer as a result. On the other hand, the Consumer Protection, the CFPB is using its enforcement authority to pursue these same contractors for the reduced levels of service that are the result of these same FSA cuts. It seems like a plan designed to break the entire student loan system. Americans can't let the Biden administration's plan succeed. We need a return to principled fiscal policy that encourages personal responsibility, a responsibility that supports the health of the American free enterprise system. With that, I thank you, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. For what purpose does the gentleman from North Carolina seek recognition? Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, ALS is a neurological disorder that affects thousands of people worldwide. Recently, I had the privilege of meeting two incredible advocates living with ALS, and their courage and determination deeply moved me. One of them is Lou Hall, a fellow Air Force veteran who was diagnosed in 2020 after undergoing several surgeries. With his wife Tammy, Lou is working tirelessly to raise awareness about the importance of early detection. Troy Tatum, an ordained Disciples of Christ reverend, was diagnosed in early 2022. Since his retirement, Troy and his wife, Leanne, has provided unyielding support and encouragement to others. To Lou and Troy, I greatly admire your strength, resilience, and unwavering commitment to a cure. Your stories are a testament to the human spirit and power of hope. Mr. Speaker, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. For what purpose does the gentleman from California seek recognition?
To address the House for 1 minute, revise and extend.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Over the past 8 weeks, my friends, Ken and Rowan, have pedaled 3,500 miles across this country to address the national homeless crisis and to raise funds to provide homes. Founded 15 years ago in the San Fernando Valley, HOPE, the mission, has grown to become the largest rescue mission in the country, operating 23 interim housing shelters with 2,700 beds and serves over 3 million meals annually. And HOPE will be adding 11 new projects in 2025, including 5 permanent supporting housing sites. And I might point out that they're able to provide these housing sites at less than a quarter of the cost done by local government in the Los Angeles area. HOPE works to treat the unique needs of the housing insecure, operate shelter sites for families and for other victims of domestic violence, offering mental health services as well as shelter. Ken and Rowan have put their bodies on the line more than once, not only bicycling across the country, but they lived for 4 days on the streets. They lived for 4 days in a car and previously ran to Las Vegas from Los Angeles. I look forward to continuing to support HOPE's efforts. I hope my colleagues, particularly in the Los Angeles area, do so as well. I'm pleased to have secured $2 million for them for homeless services, another $2 million for mental health services,
Gentleman's time
and
has
just
expired.
this year, almost $1 million to provide modular affordable housing. Thank you.
For what purpose does the gentleman from North Carolina, Mr. McHenry, seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, pursuant to House Resolution 1194, I call up HJ Res 109 and ask for its immediate consideration in the House.
The clerk will report the title of the joint resolution.
UN Calendar Number 398, House Joint Resolution 109, Joint Resolution providing for congressional disapproval under Chapter 8 of Title 5 United States Code of the rules submitted by the Securities and Exchange Commission relating to Staff Accounting Bulletin Number 121.
Pursuant to the House Resolution 1194, the joint resolution is considered read. The joint resolution shall be debatable for 1 hour, equally divided and controlled by the chair and ranking minority member of the Committee on Financial Services or their respective designees. The gentleman from North Carolina, Mr. McHenry, and the gentlewoman from California, Ms. Waters, will each control 30 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentleman from North Carolina, Mr. McHenry.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members may have 5 legislative days within which to revise and extend their remarks and submit extraneous material on the joint resolution under consideration.
Without objection.
And now, Mr. Speaker, I yield myself such time as I may consume.
The gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in support of this bipartisan resolution of disapproval. This resolution is an essential effort to protect consumers and foster innovation in digital assets markets. It's also critical to stop the Securities and Exchange Commission's regulatory power grabs and efforts to circumvent the Administrative Procedures Act. I want to thank my friend, Congressman Flood of Nebraska, a leader on financial innovation and digital asset policy, for introducing this bipartisan resolution. Staff Accounting Bulletin, or SAB 121, is one of the most glaring examples of the current Securities and Exchange Commission's reign of overreach. Through SAB 121, the Commission is trying to dictate how financial institutions and firms safeguard America's assets, in particular here, digital assets, under the guise of so-called staff guidance. Let me explain why this is deeply concerning. Because they call it a staff guidance, the Securities and Exchange Commission could avoid public comment and the rulemaking process governed by the Administrative Procedures Act, or APA. Now, this is whereby the public gets to give an opinion back or expertise back to the agency so they can improve the rulemaking by listening to the public. This is a long-standing process here in the United States. And not only did the Securities and Exchange Commission bypass Congress and the Comptroller General, but the Commission did not even consult with other financial regulators, prudential regulators responsible for overseeing banks prior to issuing SAB 121. Thanks to the work of the House Financial Services Committee and my friend, Senator Lummis, the GAO rightly deemed SAB 121 a rule for purposes of the Congressional Review Act, providing Congress with the opportunity to right the wrong of agency action. SAB 121 requires financial institutions and firms that are safeguarding their customers' digital assets to hold those assets on their balance sheet. That means banks would be required to take on significant capital, liquidity, and other costs under the existing prudential regulatory framework. This essentially makes it cost prohibitive for financial institutions to custody their customers' digital assets. Now, this is a massive deviation for how highly regulated banks are traditionally required to treat assets they hold on behalf of their customers. Now, this is the point that everyone can understand. This is a change that harms consumers and makes them less protected. It's not a change for the better, clearly. It limits the options for consumers and increases concentration risk to the financial system. And perhaps even worse, it could leave America's assets vulnerable in the event of a bank failure, just as we saw with Silicon Valley Bank last year. If you want Americans' assets to be protected, they should be held in custody, not on a bank balance sheet. And if you want Americans to be able to engage with digital assets safely and securely, banks, which are some of the most highly regulated entities in our country and in the world, are probably the best places for them to be kept. Unfortunately, SAB 121 makes this nearly impossible. We hear a lot from our Democrat colleagues about consumer protection. And if that concern is genuine, and I think it is, they should support Congressman Flood's bipartisan resolution that's before us today. Let me give you one example of why this guidance is problematic. The Securities and Exchange Commission recently approved 11 Bitcoin ETFs, which allow everyday investors to gain exposure to this new technology. It's a decade old, but it's relatively new. Of those 11, 0, and I repeat 0, use banks as their primary custodian. Instead, all that risk is now concentrated in a few entities. So let's do a quick recap. The Securities and Exchange Commission, through Staff Accounting Bulletin 121, upended traditional custody practices. So just like you hold a stock with a stockbroker, it's held in custody. That means that that entity, if it goes bankrupt, your asset is still protected. It is held in custody and safeguarded as if it's in a safe. And so we want digital assets to be treated the same way that we treat other other assets and protected. So this Staff Accounting Bulletin upends traditional custody practices for banking institutions, and it made a joke of the rulemaking process and ignored other regulatory agencies and market participants that are impacted by this bulletin. That's a bad process and even worse policy outcomes. So if you want consumers to be protected in digital assets markets, vote yes on this resolution. If you want to return bank custody practices to the tried, tested, and successful approach that we've had in this country for centuries, then vote yes. If you support financial innovation, you should vote yes as well. And finally, if you want to send a message that rogue regulators cannot circumvent Congress and our well-established rulemaking process, vote yes. So let's bring this common sense, this level of common sense into the world of the digital asset debate, or crypto, and bring consumer protection back to this marketplace where it needs to be. And with that, I encourage my colleagues to vote yes on this Congressional Review Act. But finally, I want to thank Congressman Flood on the Republican side and Congressman Nickel on the Democratic side for their leadership on this important topic. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman from North Carolina reserves. The gentlelady from California, Ms. Waters, is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I yield myself such time as I may consume.
The gentlelady is recognized.
I rise in support to Opposition H.J. Res. 109, a Congressional Review Act resolution that would overturn accounting guidance for crypto assets from the Securities and Exchange Commission, known as Staff Accounting Bulletin 121 or SAB 121. The bill sponsors have falsely asserted that this bill is meant to address a narrow concern from a particular special interest group. But in reality, it is drafted in a way that is far broader than this narrow concern. The collateral damage caused by this CRA resolution would be far-reaching, causing significant harm to investors, consumers, public companies, and the safety and soundness of our capital markets. The bill takes a sledgehammer to fix an issue that may nearly need a scalpel, and it does so because my colleagues on the other side of the aisle are not only interested in doing the bidding of special interest groups, they're also interested in attacking and undermining the SEC in every possible way, as they have done relentlessly since the beginning of this Congress. SAB 121 is highly technical in the guidance, but let me break it down simply. SAB 121 has been in place for 2 years, and it only applies to companies that hold crypto assets on behalf of their customers. This is known as providing custody services. SAB 121 provides guidance for these companies in 2 respects. First, it advises companies on how they should disclose the crypto assets that they custody. And second, it advises companies on how they should record those crypto assets on their balance sheets. The first prong of the guidance I described on disclosure of crypto assets is critical to providing transparency for investors and the public on volatile crypto assets. This kind of transparency helps prevent the kind of fraud and mishandling of crypto assets that led to the collapse of major crypto companies like FTX. In fact, this disclosure guidance has been broadly supported by industry and advocate stakeholders alike. The second prong of SAB 121 advises relevant companies on how to record crypto assets on their balance sheets. Under the guidance, the amount of the liability should correspond to the fair value of the crypto assets they are obligated to safeguard. This ensures that the company providing custody services has sufficient resources to secure these assets for the users against any theft, loss, or other misuse that could result in financial consequences. The SEC has explained that this guidance is prudent due to the unique risk and uncertainties associated with crypto assets. So the sponsor of this resolution has tried to reason that this bill is meant to respond to a narrow concern from largely custody banks, but it really has much more far-reaching negative consequences. Specifically, this special interest group has raised concerns that the second prong of SAB 121 that I described on accounting mechanisms would interact with existing bank capital requirements in a way that would absolutely make it cost prohibitive for them to provide custody services for crypto assets. So to be clear, even this special interest group has expressed support for the disclosure guidance in SAB 121. They are only concerned about how the accountant guidance applies to their balance sheet. In fact, a letter sent by this special interest group requests, and quote, targeted modifications, unquote, to address this concern. Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to submit this letter for the record, but this bill does far more than implement targeted modifications, as this letter proposes. This CRA resolution would overturn all of SAB 121, not just the part that this special interest group has complained about. So, Mr. Speaker, I am curious whether my colleagues on the other side of the aisle have actually read this letter from the special interest group that they are trying to pander, or to whether they are bothered to consult the largest custody bank in the United States, the Bank of New York Mellon, which custodies more than $45 trillion in customer assets, because they told me that they do not want this CRA and did not push for it in any way, because they share our concerns about the bill being overly broad. The consequences of using a CRA rather than a more narrowly tailored bill go beyond simply overturning SAB 121 entirely,